My name is Thomas Moore. I am 63 years old, and I am making this video because I found out too late that a man can spend his whole life doing what looks right and still waste the only life he gets. I started when the doctors told me I did not have much left. That is an ugly sentence to say out loud. It makes me sound ungrateful for the life I had. I am not ungrateful. I had a wife who stayed. I had children who grew up decent. I had work that kept food on the table and the lights on. I had a name people trusted. In my neighborhood, that meant something. In this country, for a black man my age, that meant a whole lot. But a man can be respected and still be missing from his own life. I know because I was. I spent 45 years under hoods and under cars. I know what hot oil smells like when it hits skin. I know the sound of a belt going bad before it snaps. I know what fear looks like on a customer pretending he is only mildly concerned about a noise coming from the engine. When I was young, I wanted to teach history, civics, anything that let me stand in front of a room and make the world less confusing for somebody else. I loved facts. I still do. I loved the shape of a lesson. I loved the way a kid's face changed when some old event stopped being dead words and turned into people, choices, consequences. I used to think that was what I was meant for. Then Angela got pregnant. Not a tragedy, not even close, just life arriving before the plan was ready. We were broke. We were scared. We were black and young and trying to build something sturdy in a country that has always charged interest on both those things. So I took a job at a garage because they paid cash at first and regular later. Then I took another. Then I got good. Then I got needed. Then I got tired in a way that settled into my bones and started calling itself character. One child became 3. 2 boys and then our girl. We had rent, then a mortgage, then repairs, then school clothes, then braces, then medicine, then tuition worries, then all the ordinary emergencies that eat through a paycheck before it even knows your name. I kept telling myself I would get back to the rest of my life when things settled down. Things never settle down. They just change clothes. The day everything cracked, I was fighting with an old Accord in the shop. My shoulder was aching, and I had that cough again, deep and dry and mean. My phone rang. The clinic wanted me back that afternoon. I already knew. A man knows when he has run out of excuses. He just does not always stop using them. That is where I met Edward Blackwood. I knew the name before I knew the face. Half the hospital carried it. Blackwood Cancer Pavilion, Blackwood Research Center. His money had bought glass buildings, polished floors, elegant lighting, artwork so expensive it made you feel poor just looking at it. Then I saw the man himself in a paper gown, thin around the eyes, still carrying himself like he expected the room to make space. Edward Blackwood was one of those men who did not enter places so much as claim them. Rich, sharp, controlled. The kind of man who smiled with one side of his mouth when he was bored and with neither side when he was amused. He looked at me like he could sort my whole life in under 10 seconds. Then the scans came back, and they sorted both of us. Lung cancer. Same ward, same silence after the doctor left. Same number hanging in the air like bad weather. 6 months to a year. He took the news with a joke so dry it could have caught fire. I took it by staring at the floor tiles and thinking about Angela folding towels in the hallway linen closet at home. Maybe because the mind runs toward ordinary things when death enters the room. Maybe because I had spent my life assuming there would always be another Tuesday. Edward broke the silence first. Not with comfort, not with wisdom, with curiosity. He wanted to know why a man with hands like mine looked more insulted than frightened. I told him fear would come later. He said later was the favorite lie of men like us. That irritated me on sight. What I did not realize then was that he was talking about himself too. We got put in the same room for a few days after more tests. You learn a lot about a stranger when there is nowhere to go, and the machines keep reminding both of you that flesh is a temporary arrangement. Edward slept little. He worked constantly at first, even in that bed, issuing instructions, moving money, correcting people, making jokes that left bruises. I watched him like I watch a customer who keeps turning up the radio because he does not want to hear the engine knock. One night he asked me what I would have done if I had not spent my life fixing other people's cars. I told him I would have taught school. He laughed, but not cruelly. More like he had just found out a bulldozer used to dream of becoming a pianist. Then he asked me why I never did. I started giving him the respectable answer: wife, kids, bills, responsibility. He let me finish. Then he said that was all true, and still not the whole truth. I hated how fast he could find the tender spots. A day later, he told me he had no interest in dying politely. He had made his money controlling outcomes. If he could not control the ending, he was going to control the days before it. He started a list, not a grand philosophical document, just a plain list of things he had never done, never said, never allowed himself, and now did not have the luxury of postponing. He told me to make one. I did not want to. It felt childish, it felt selfish, it felt like something irresponsible people did. He said that was exactly my problem. The first thing on my list was not jump from a plane or see the world. It was easier than that, and harder. Tell the truth, not to the doctor, to Angela, to my children, to myself. I had spent years saying I was doing everything for my family. Edward kept asking whether my family had ever asked me to disappear into work as completely as I had. That question followed me like a bad smell, because the answer was no. They needed me, they loved me, but some part of me had loved being needed because it let me stay in motion. Cars I could solve, bills I could chase, overtime I could point to. It was cleaner than sitting still with the man who never became a teacher. Angela took the news with more grace than I deserved. My oldest son got very quiet. My second son got angry in the practical way, asking about treatment, names, schedules, odds. My daughter cried first and then apologized for crying, which broke my heart harder than the diagnosis. I looked at all three of them and realized I had been a steady father, a useful father, a respectable father. But there were whole rooms inside me they had never been invited into. After that, Edward and I left. Not in one big burst of movie magic. Not like two fools sprinting from the grave. We left in pieces, between appointments, scans, exhaustion, nausea, and days when the body reminded us that ambition means nothing to sick lungs. But we left. The first thing he insisted on was skydiving in Arizona. I told him that sounded less like courage and more like rich people running out of sensible hobbies. He said fear was honest, and he was in the mood for honesty. When the plane door opened, all the jokes disappeared from both of us. The desert below looked ancient and indifferent. I remember the wind hitting my face so hard, it erased every thought except one. I am here right now, not later, not next year, not when work calms down, not when the kids are older, right now. Then we fell, and for one clean, terrible second, I felt younger than I had in 30 years. Not because I was strong, but because I was fully there. After we landed, Edward laughed until he coughed. I laughed until I had to sit down. Neither of us looked dignified. It was one of the first moments I liked him. In Nevada, we drove race cars on a private track. That one was more his style. Precision, speed, status. But halfway through the day, he spun out on a turn, climbed from the car furious, then suddenly started smiling. He told me it was the first time in 40 years that losing had felt clean. No board, no shareholders, no reporters. Just a mistake, a skid, a stupid grin. We stood there, in the hot wind with our helmets under our arms, two dying men learning that some things only become simple when they stop mattering to everybody else. In France, we had dinner at a hotel so elegant it made me sit up straighter before I remembered I no longer had time for pretending. The room was all soft light and quiet silver and wine older than one of my sons. Edward, knew how to belong there. I did not. He noticed me looking at the people, the polished confidence, the effortless wealth. He asked what I was thinking. I told him Angela once wanted to take a weekend trip with me down to Savannah. Just 2 nights. Not France, not luxury, just away. I told her we could not afford the time. Sitting there with crystal glasses and a view worth more than my first house, all I could think about was that I would have traded that whole room for 1 cheap motel and 2 slow mornings with my wife, when we were still young enough not to know what was coming. Edward did not joke then. He just nodded, like a man recognizing a wound in a place he had one too. At the Taj Mahal, I expected beauty. I did not expect anger. Standing there looking at a monument built out of grief, all I could think was that love keeps asking people to prove itself after the fact. Big gestures, expensive gestures, late gestures. I thought about every ordinary day Angela and I had spent too tired to sit on the porch and talk for 10 minutes. I thought about how easy it is to neglect a life while claiming you are protecting it. In China, we rode motorcycles along a stretch near the Great Wall that left my back screaming and Edward cursing like a man discovering age for the first time. Somewhere around sunset we stopped, and the wall ran over the hills like a line drawn by a stubborn hand that refused to end. Edward looked smaller there, not weak. He told me he had spent so long building things that outlived other men that he never noticed he had built a life almost nobody could enter. Then he asked me whether I had done something similar in reverse. Built a life so dutiful nobody could question it, and then hidden in it. That was the closest either of us came to prayer. In Tanzania, watching elephants move through dust at dawn, I saw him cry for the first time. Not much, just enough to count. He did not wipe it away immediately. He said those animals looked like they remembered everything. I said maybe that was why they moved so slowly. He told me that was the most teacher thing I had said all month. By then, that had become his way of honoring me. He used to tease me about the teacher I never became. Later, he started asking for stories about Reconstruction, about Bessie Coleman, about James Baldwin, about the mechanics of old engines and the mechanics of old lies. Sometimes on planes or in cars or hospital rooms, I would talk and he would listen with his eyes closed. A man with more money than sense, leaning back like a schoolboy who had finally found a class worth attending. I did not become a teacher in the life I planned, but for a little while, I was one anyway. That matters to me. Near the end of our traveling, we flew north, where the world below turned white and endless. The ice looked both pure and doomed. Edward stared out the window for a long time. Then he said all his life he thought power meant never needing anybody. I told him all my life I thought love meant carrying everything myself. We sat with that. 2 old fools in expensive seats, both of us realizing we had spent decades worshiping forms of loneliness and calling them strength. That was the closest we ever came to saying we loved each other. He got worse before I did. That still does not feel fair, though I know fairness has nothing to do with any of this. The last time I saw him truly awake, the jokes were mostly gone, the sharp edges too. He looked at me and said I was going home with unfinished business. He was right. My family did not need more stories about where I had been. They needed the version of me that those places had uncovered. So I went home. I sat with Angela at the kitchen table and told her things I should have told her 30 years ago. That I have been proud of providing because it let me avoid failing in front of the people I loved most. That sometimes work was not sacrifice, sometimes it was refuge. That she had married a good man but not always an open one. She cried. Then I cried. Then we sat there with swollen faces and cold coffee. And for once I did not rush to fix a thing. I spent time with my sons as men, not projects. I listened longer. I interrupted less. I told my daughter's stories all the way through. Not half of them, all of them. And still, this is not a happy ending. I need to say that plain. A few brave months do not refund a life. A beautiful trip does not erase years of absence. A late truth is still late. That is the part I carry. Not that I worked hard. Hard work was real. Not that I loved my family, I did. It is that I confused being useful with being present. I confused exhaustion with devotion. I thought there would be time to become myself after I finished being what everybody needed. That extra time never showed up. So if there is any lesson in my life, it is not a grand one. It is smaller and meaner than that. The life you keep postponing does not wait nearby. It burns while you are busy. I am Thomas More. I was a mechanic for 45 years. I was almost a teacher. I was a husband the whole time. A father too. A friend late in life to a man I would have disliked on sight in any other circumstances. He showed me that money cannot bully death. I showed him that duty can become a hiding place. Between us, somewhere over deserts and oceans and old regrets, we managed to tell each other the truth. I wish I had learned sooner that truth is not what kills a man. Delay does that. And I lured it with a clock running.